Okay, well, I did a little video about radio control equipment for rubber models, but it's already been 7 years. And I also know that some of the things that we're using aren't available anymore. So I've had people asking me, can you do an update on that? And so recently I bought some servos and receivers, so I'm a little bit more up to date. Actually, I have a lot, I don't need any, but I got them anyway. And I had some nice surprises there as well. Okay, so let me show you what. Now let me start with my go-to system, and this is the Keelcraft Ace. As you've seen videos of this flying. And typically what I do is, I used to put it under the wing, the equipment, but then you have to take the wing off if you want to change the battery or something. And let me raise this up a little bit. And so what I usually do is I put it on the bottom, and I usually put it close to where the center of gravity is, okay? Here's the landing gear, so I put it right about here. And then I have a little hold down. All I do is I glue a nylon nut on the other side, and then the screw goes in, gives you a nice little hold down. You don't need rubber bands that way. And then there's a little cover, and I put a little tongue in there to help, keep it aligned. And there you go. There's everything in there, okay? So this has kind of been my go-to system for about 10 years, over 10 years actually. So we have an Orange R410 receiver, okay? And I'll show you that again in a moment. Here I have the HobbyKing altimeter, which is fantastic. And luckily I have a whole bunch of them, at least a half dozen of them that I bought. It's not available anymore, so I'm not going to go over that. The nice part about that is you can see your altitude, you get a graph, you can see what your sync rate is. I can see, does this prop get me 20 feet higher? And you can't really tell that by watching, so it's really, really nice. But it's a little more of a luxury. So that's an add-on, you don't need that. And then here you'll see I have an E-flite battery. So really you just need the receiver and the battery, right? Okay. And I like to put a little switch because this way I can say, here, let me close that. So you can see there's plenty of room in there. Okay. And then so that just goes like that. And then you put the little hold down like that. And let me turn it over here. So I like to put a little switch because then, that way I can just flick it on when I'm about to launch it and flick it off. And here's the servo, which is the HobbyKing 282A. I'll show you that again in a minute. And I think that's everything on this. You can see I still have the motor in this. I was flying this. So you've seen this many times. And by the way, when you see things on my video, like on this video, you'll see 215 feet. That's because of the altimeter. Okay, so I can tell how high it went. All right, and look at that. I can see on the motor I have in there, I have a broken strand. There you go. So it's time to change that motor. All right, so let's get to the equipment. And so here we are. As I said, this was my go-to for many years, the HK, the HobbyKing R410. There it is. These are 1.25 millimeter plugs. All right. And, it's too bad, but they don't make this receiver anymore. All right. It's a good receiver, and I probably have a dozen of them or more, because a lot of times when I made a new plane, I just bought a new receiver. They weren't very expensive. In fact, I still have a few more in the bag. All right, so no big motivation update that. I'll continue to use these, of course. And then the second one I've used is the Lemon. So you can get this at hobbyking.com. Oh, what I wanted to say about this is, unfortunately, they don't make this anymore. But they do make another one that's close. It's the Orange R410X. And the listed weight on that is 2.7 grams, which isn't bad. Okay, so you got to see whether they include the antennas or not. This one, I think it weighs about 2 1/4. Here I have the scale. I'll just pop it on quick. Yeah, it's about 2 1/4, 2.24. So it's pretty light. This is really nice. Okay, but unfortunately you can't get it. So if you want to order from HobbyKing, I'd recommend get the R410X. It's and that one's probably 2.7 grams is what it's listed as. Okay. So then the next one, and I've used this before as well, as the Lemon receiver. All right, this is actually a 6-channel, and it has these light plastic plugs, and I think the weight on this was pretty good. Here, let me hit it there. They are 1.9 grams, so that's fantastic. Okay, I have another one from them, and it also has the pins. You see, the pins are heavier. That's why we don't want that. I think that one is still, it's only 2.9 grams, so you don't have to get nutty. I mean, any of these are fine. All right. Unfortunately, they don't have this one anymore either. They have a no-pin version, so they don't have the pins here. So that's fine. It's even lighter, and we're not using 6 channels anyway. I'm only using like 2. Okay, one for the rudder and one for the battery. That's really it. And the third one would be the altimeter. So 3 or 4 channels is usually plenty. So you can get the no pin one, but then you got to solder a little bit yourself. All right, that's the only limit on that. Now here's some really nice news. I found another one recently, and this is from Microbirds.com. Okay, and it's a 4-channel receiver. Look at this, and the range should be fine. I think it's at least 800 feet. And this only weighs 0.9 grams. I was blown away when I saw this. This is really, really nice. There it's 0.98. So it's just under a gram. I mean, that's incredible. So I'm looking forward to trying this. I'm actually thinking of building something small just because this is so light. All right. And I should mention, oh yeah, the Lemon here, this one had 1.5 millimeter plugs. This one takes 1 millimeter plugs. That's part of the reason it's very light. Okay. And you can just buy a bunch of those. And I did that for both the 1.25 and the 1. You just go online and you're basically looking for, let's say you're doing this one, you're looking for 1 millimeter 3-pin plugs. And if you do a search on that, you know, you can usually get 20 or 30 for $5 or $6 or $7. It's relatively inexpensive. Okay. I should say that about the battery connector too, because here I use these E-Flight batteries, you see. Here's a 70 milliamp, and then here's a 30 milliamp. And so the plug this takes is a 1.25 millimeter JST plug again. There you go. And I bought, I don't know, 50 of these for under $10. So just get a whole bunch, because if I want to connect to this receiver, for example, I'll just make, you know, the plug here. I'll solder this to a 1 millimeter JST plug, so I can plug that in and I can plug the battery in. And I have packets of those too. You can just get the 1 millimeter or 1.25. Here's a 1.25. So you can buy packets of these online. Okay? I should say a couple of words about the batteries. I say it in the earlier video. Nothing's changed there. Here's the 70 milliamp. That's the one I usually use. All right? It weighs about 2.5 grams. Okay? And then of course you need the plug. So I usually make the plug very short as well. And you'll get about 40 minutes on time on that. I've used these for many, many years. I've never had a brownout or anything. Probably 1,000 flights at this point. I don't think I've had a single brownout or anything. So you get about 40 minutes. Now if you want to get a little nutty and get a little lighter, here's the 30 milliamp, and this only weighs 1.5 grams. So if you're going for really light, this is pretty light. Here in my experience, I'd say about 20 minutes, and I wouldn't go longer than that. You'll see, fully charged they're 4.2 volts. All right, and I would say once it gets below 4 at that point, you might as well just change the battery. Okay, I mean, it depends. Most of these should operate down to about 3.5 or 3.7. They'll all say they vary a little bit. All right, but I wouldn't go more than 20 minutes or much under 3.9 or less volts. Let's say I would change the battery. It's easy to just buy a whole bunch of them and then you don't have to worry about it. All right, so that's the receivers. So you can get the other HobbyKing there. You can still get the Lemon with the no pin. I really love this Microbirds. Oh, let me mention this now. I'd recommend get this from Microbirds.com because it was only $19. But you can also get it at AORC.com. Okay, they also have it. It's a little bit more there. And they have some other ones, and so do Microbirds, that are a little heavier than this 0.9, that are like 2 grams. And those are probably fine too. So we have plenty of available receivers, which is really, really nice. And the batteries are readily available. Alright, so the next part is the servos. Okay, and as I showed you, my go-to servo for many years was the HKM 282A, basically. And here's the 282AS. The 282A has a 1.25 millimeter plug, so it's perfect for my HobbyKing there. That goes right in. I actually got some of the HKM 282AS's because they have a 1 millimeter plug, so they'll go right into the Microbird. I don't have to do any soldering or anything. Alright? And there's really 3 categories of servos you can buy, and I ordered them here. The lightest, which are over here, which are like 1.7 grams. And then these, which usually advertised as 2 or 1.9 grams. And then 2.5 grams are heavier. And they differ with respect to the torque, you know, how much force they can handle. So for bigger planes, or if you have a longer push rod, you need more torque. Okay? So let me show you. What I've basically flown with for years is the 282, and that seems to be fine. All right, I've never had a problem with this. And you can look what the torque is and stuff online. I think here they give it about 0.12 gram per centimeter, but that's at 4.8 volts. You really need the operating around 3.7. Some give that. But anyway, I've used this for over 10 years and it's fine. Okay. Now the only problem with that is a lot of times they're out of stock or they're not available. They did have the 282AS recently, so I bought a few, and it was from Hong Kong, so the shipping was really inexpensive. All right. But if you're going to order from HobbyKing, I'd also suggest, I was surprised to find this. This is the 330, okay, and it also weighs about 2 grams or so around there. All right. In fact, here, I'll just pop it on for a sec. Yeah, 2.2. And they're all about that. This with the wire is also about 2 1/4. But I was surprised HobbyKing had this 330. And the thing that was interesting about this is it had the highest torque of any of them that from what they reported, it looked relatively high. They have one with a 1 1/4 millimeter plug, and then they have a 330S, and that's with the 1 millimeter plug. All right, and that one they reported, you know, 0.15 grams per centimeter at 3.7 volts. I was like, whoa. So this is really good. Now the only down part about that is, yeah, the Servo was $3.33. They're cheap, but the shipping was $39, right? So of course you go, forget it. But you got to think about it a little differently. So what I did is I bought 10 of them. That was 33 bucks, and then with the shipping, 39. So it was $72. So it's about 7 bucks a Servo. That's the way to look at it. That's because it had to come from the European store. So if it comes from the US store, it'll be real cheap. And also when I've gotten it from the Hong Kong, I got the ASs from the Hong Kong at the same time, and that was like $3 for shipping. So it depends where, you know, you got to check and see what the stock is and stuff like that. Okay. Now I found another one, and this is advertises the 2 grams, and this is from AEORC. So I was really happy to find this, and I forgot what the exact price was. I think it was like 4 of them for $24, something like that. It was about 6 bucks a Servo. Okay, and these came pretty quick too, and they have little 1 millimeter plugs, so there you go. They'll go right into the Microbirds there, or the EO1. Okay, so that was an interesting find. And that's also rated at, it's a pretty good torque. They rate at 0.095 at 3.7 volts. So you have a choice in that range, and as I said, I've used this for years. I haven't used this, but it has even more torque, so I'm sure it's good. And I'm really glad I got 10 of these, because it actually was the lightest of all of these, I believe. Really a little lighter. And now there's some other options as well. Now for the bigger planes, they also have listed 2.5 grams, and you can get that at AEORC.com. I found, here's one. This is advertised as 2.5 K-Power. Do a search on K-Power Servos, okay? And I found this. It came up at Amazon. I think it was, I don't know, 6 of them for $21 or something ridiculous. It was, and that came right away. So there you go. That's another option. That's a little heavier. With this big, it has this plug. With that, it actually weighs over 4 grams. I'm going to shorten it and put a plastic plug on it. That'll save weight. Now then I also found some really light ones, and I haven't used them, but I think for small planes this is interesting. These are all weighted around 1.7 grams. So one is the HobbyKing again. This is the 282. I'm sorry, it's the 5320S, and the S has the 1 point, because I was thinking of using this with the smaller receiver. So it has the 1 millimeter 3-pin JST plug. Okay, so that looks good, and it's actually rated fairly good. They don't tell you at 3.7, but it looks fairly good because it's good at 4.8, around 0.11. All right, and that was actually, again, like $4, and it depends again where it comes from, but this time it was Hong Kong, so the shipping was just a few dollars. Now AEORC.com, that's where you can get this again. This is their 1.7 gram. That's their lightest Servo. Okay, and it was relatively inexpensive. Again, it was like 4 of them for 20-something dollars. And they actually, now with the cords, almost all these Servos, since they don't count the cords, it's usually about 0.2 grams if it has this kind of plug. So these actually weigh about 1.9 grams with the plug. Okay, which is fine. Here, let me pop that on. There you go. It's 1.91. Here's the other one. That's 1.89. They're fantastic. So these are very light Servos. And I think they have adequate torque because, let's see, the 1.7, yeah, AEO is nice because they give you all the stats. So it's 0.065 kilograms per centimeter. It's the lowest. So, you know, the size and the weight is obviously directly related to the torque for the most part. All of these have the same rating at 0.075 kilogram per centimeter at 4.2 in terms of the torque. And then these are a little higher, and then this is a little higher, okay? So for my WASP, which is the biggest plane, and their weight's not as crucial, going to be like 180 grams or more anyway, I'll use this, the biggest one. These are the ones I'd recommend. I know I've used for many years, and they all work at that torques, and I've never had a problem. And then these are some light ones. So I think I'm going to build something light and try those. So hopefully they're okay. Now here, when I said, boy, I bought 10 of them, you might go, oh, you're nuts, man. Why buy 10? But let me tell you, one thing it doesn't hurt to overbuy is servos, because they break really easy. The receivers, what amazes me is, I guess it's over 10 years of flying. I've never broken one. I've hit a tree, I hit the cement, more in the old days than I do now, but never broken a servo. They've never failed. It's amazing. I still have every single one I bought except for some planes I lost, okay? But the servos is another story. The servos break really easy. I think it just jars, and even with the thread, it just strips them and they get stuck. You'll see. Sometimes I'm surprised. It seems like I just have, you know, a little stall and a light tap on the ground and bang, I pick the plane up and I can tell the servo's jammed. So my whole point is it doesn't hurt to have the 10 servos. I've had to change the servos periodically, okay? So it doesn't hurt to have extras on those. All right, I think that's everything. There are, here, I was going to mention one or two other things. There are adapters you can get from HobbyKing. This goes from 1.25 millimeters to the plug. This I bought because for the smaller, this goes from 1.25 to 1, so in other words, I can plug in a 1.25 millimeter and then I can plug the other side into the 1 millimeter like here. Unfortunately, what I found out is that you actually have to reverse the plug. It didn't work. Here, I did one, and I actually had to reverse the plug. So you got to pay attention on the receiver to where the positive is, and I realized it was actually reversed. And so it didn't work in here. This was one to go into the I think into the 1.25. So you got to pay attention to where the positive is. Okay. All right. I think that's everything. So it's nice to see there are still lots of servos around. Let me show you here. I have some of the boxes. So if you want to find, you can do the like I mentioned there. You can do the K-Power. This is the X servo that I got from AORCom. They're 1.7 and they have the 2.0. I got a bunch of them, so they seem pretty nice. Sometimes I get this switch online. It's not always available, but there's a whole bunch of switches. So I just cut everything off and use the little switch for the most part. Okay, and I think I told you where to get the plugs, the power plugs. These are 1.25 millimeter and they're 2-pin. So just buy a bunch of plugs online and you'll be all set. All right. That's everything. So I'm glad to see there's still a lot of stuff available so we can continue doing RC with rubber power. Alright, just a little follow-up, okay? Because people ask me about some other things like the charger and things like that. So here's the charger I like. It's an E-Flight Selectra, and you can charge up to 4 batteries at once. Alright, it kind of blinks when you plug them in if it needs to be charged. There you go, you see the light comes on. And then it'll be blinking, and then eventually when it just pretty much goes off and stays off, then it's fully charged, okay? Now they have other one too. They have one that's a little USB charger. You just plug it in, it does one at a time, and you plug it into your computer, and that works fine too, and it's incredibly inexpensive. Alright, this one I like because if I'm going to go out flying, I'm usually going to bring like 8 batteries so I can charge up 4 at a shot. The other thing that's really important, particularly when you're at the field, is you need an accurate battery tester, okay? And, well, let me say one or two other things. The reason I like this one over the years, I don't want to say I haven't tried other ones. I've tried a whole bunch of other ones, but this one seems to get them pretty fully charged, so that's one of the reasons I'm happy with it. All right, the next thing is the battery tester. The battery tester is crucial because I want to know, is this thing much under 3.8 volts, at which point I'm not going to use it. And I've really had some problems with this. I've gone through a lot of testers. Some of them were really inaccurate and they were just off, and sometimes that's crucial at the field if you think the battery's charged but it's not. Okay, but here's the one I like, and I've been really happy with this. It's AO Coda. You'll see it here, I think. Hopefully that's in focus. And I'm really happy with this one, okay? You can see on the side here, it says AO Coda, if you can see it there. And then here's the side I use, because the battery is 1.25 millimeters, and there you go, it's right there. It's got some other plugs on the other side. I've been happy with this one because it seems pretty accurate. Here, let's pull out a battery that now is supposedly fully charged. It's not blinking. It fully charges 4.2 volts. Okay, so let's plug this baby in there, and there you go. Pretty damn close, all right? So this is fully charged, okay? And here, let's check the other one. Some batteries only go up so high, and that's it. Look at that. There you go. Looks like that baby is fully charged, and that's a battery from 521, I see. Sometimes I label them. Fully charged, ready to go. Okay? So if you do a search online, you'll find this. It's also pretty inexpensive. And this is usually what I throw into the box to bring with me to the field. So when I get to the field, I pull out a battery and I check its charge. And if it looks good, I'll throw it in the plane. And like these two, you know you'll get a good 40 minutes. And if you have an on time of maybe 10 minutes per flight, you'll get at least 4 flights. Okay? So you'll get plenty of flying. All right, so let's get out to the field and have some fun.